All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something pretty incredible, the actual science of discovery. We're going to look at exactly how professionals, whether we're talking about academic scholars or business leaders, navigate incredibly dense research and massive data sets to uncover completely new knowledge. I kind of want you to think of them as detectives hunting for clues, or maybe miners prospecting for gold. It's a highly structured, deliberate search for the unknown.
So let me ask you a question. We live in a world literally drowning in data and research, right? We have massive libraries full of academic journals, servers absolutely packed with transactional data. So how on earth do we find what we don't know? It's a bit of a paradox, but the shared challenge for both a novice researcher starting out and a seasoned business analyst looking at quarterly reports is exactly the same. They both need to find the hidden value tucked away inside all that pre-existing information. How do you systematically spot the invisible?
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with finding the missing puzzle pieces, then look at the 7 research gaps. From there, we move from data to decisions, dive into mining hidden data patterns, and wrap it all up with the power of active knowledge.
Okay, let's jump straight into part 1, finding the missing puzzle pieces.
To really wrap our heads around academic research, think about putting together a massive 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. You're working away, you get halfway through, and you suddenly realize some absolutely critical pieces are just completely missing. Well, that missing piece is exactly what we call a research gap. It's the primary basis for the investigation of literally any scientific question. It happens when prior research is either missing entirely, conflicting with other research, or just lacking actual empirical proof. Now, novice researchers often struggle immensely with this. They tend to think finding a gap is just in the eye of the beholder. They stare at a mountain of literature and just don't know how to systematically spot the holes.
Moving right along to part 2, the 7 research gaps, a systematic framework. So, to avoid just totally guessing, researchers rely on formal frameworks built by theorists like Robinson and Mueller-Bloch and Krantz. In 2017, a researcher named Miles took these somewhat abstract theories and built a visual cycle. It actually ranks the 7 core research gaps, starting from the most common at the top, all the way down to the least common. It forms this really elegant, continuous cycle of discovery, proving that identifying these gaps isn't just some random art form, it's a very systematic process you can follow.
I absolutely love this breakdown because it brilliantly translates all that dense academic jargon into simple, real-world questions that our inner detective can ask. For instance, the population gap, that just simply asks, who is missing? The empirical gap asks, is there proof? Methodological asks, how was it done differently? The knowledge gap is just, what doesn't exist yet? The theoretical gap looks for the underlying model. The evidence gap investigates contradicting results. And finally, the practical knowledge gap asks why professionals out in the real world deviate from what the research says.
So armed with these clear questions, researchers aren't just sitting back and passively reading textbooks. No, they conduct what's called a gap audit. They actively interrogate the text. They're constantly asking, are there underserved subpopulations here? Does this prior research actually lack empirical design? Are these findings contradictory? Is there a lack of a theoretical model? Does practice deviate from the research? This audit is basically their magnifying glass. It helps them hunt down those missing puzzle pieces systematically.
Let's move to section 3, from data to decisions, sifting for gold.
Now we're pivoting into the business world. We aren't detectives in a library anymore, we're prospectors. We are sifting through literal mountains of dirt, data, to find those golden nuggets. And to do this effectively, we absolutely have to separate information from knowledge. See, information is passive. It's just the raw puzzle pieces. It's the extracted data that simply reports facts, like a report telling you, hey, you had 50 sales over $100 last week. Knowledge, on the other hand, is the completed puzzle driving action. It's enhanced by a decision-maker's experience and competence to solve really complex problems. Generating this active knowledge is the ultimate goal, whether you're doing academic research or business intelligence.
And that crucial leap, it happens through business intelligence. It uses mathematical models to systematize this exact transition. It basically equips a decision maker with a system that evaluates lots of different alternatives, leading to far more accurate conclusions and ultimately effective and timely decisions. It's literally the machinery that turns raw dirt into refined, actionable gold.
Which brings us to section 4, mining hidden data patterns, extracting rules.
So, how does this machinery actually work under the hood? Well, one of our primary tools in data mining is called a regression model. Now, please don't let the mathematical definition intimidate you. Yes, formally, they are explanatory mathematical models used to predict a specific, continuous numerical target based on independent variables.
But in everyday language, you're literally just predicting a specific number. For example, you might use a regression model to forecast exactly how much a specific customer is going to spend next month based on their demographics and their past buying habits. Simple, right?
Then we have our second major tool, which is a classification model. These are supervised learning algorithms that predict the value of a categorical target attribute for future examples. If regression is predicting a number, think of classification as sorting a huge mixed bag of candy into distinct piles. You're putting things into distinct categories. A great example is looking at a customer's history and predicting if they will churn and cancel their subscription or if they won't churn.
Let's just put these two primary data mining models side by side to really lock in that analogy. Regression forecasts a specific continuous number, like futures sales dollars. Classification assigns a categorical target, like a medical diagnosis or a churn risk alert. Both take past data to actively predict the future, they just output entirely different types of answers.
But here's a thought. What if you honestly don't know what you're looking for yet? What if you don't have a specific target in mind? Well, that is exactly where unsupervised learning methods come into play. We're talking about methods like clustering, which groups records into homogeneous groups based purely on similarity, or association rules, which find regular patterns and recurrences within transactions. In these cases, you are simply mining for natural groupings or associations hidden away in the transactional dirt. This is used heavily in things like market basket analysis. It's how supermarkets figure out that people who buy diapers on a Friday night also tend to buy beer.
Finally, Section 5, the power of active knowledge, connecting the themes. All right, it's time to tie our two big discovery themes together. We've got the active hunt for missing gaps in the library and the active search for patterns in the data mine. The absolutely crucial word to remember here is active. Active mathematical learning models generate predictions and interpretations that represent completely new knowledge. This is way different from passive statistical validation, where you're just sort of checking a top-down hypothesis. Whether you are doing a gap audit with literature or running a data mining algorithm on your company's sales, you are actively generating actionable knowledge from the bottom up.
I absolutely love this quote from Vladimir Vapnik. He says, "Nothing is more practical than a good theory." And it's so true. It really reassures us that while these academic concepts, like the 7 research gaps and mathematical models like regression and classification, might seem super abstract on the surface, they are actually incredibly practical, essential tools for real-world governance and decision-making. They literally give us the power to make sense of reality.
So I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Think about your own work, your studies, your business. What hidden knowledge might you be walking past every single day in your own data? Be the detective. Be the prospector. Start looking for those gaps, start mining the patterns, and uncover what you don't know. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.